Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're going to unpack one of the most fascinating escalations of martial arts and energy ever put to screen. We are looking at a literal masterclass in breaking boundaries, the evolution of Goku's power. We're going to trace this legendary journey together. It's a tale of ever-escalating transformations that constantly, and I mean constantly, redefine what we perceive as the absolute ceiling of physical and spiritual capability. Let's bring some serious energy to this analysis.
Okay, let's dive into this. Against Frieza, the odds weren't just bad, right? They were mathematically impossible. I don't care if you're a million times stronger than me, mark my words, I'm not going to let them down. So get ready, Frieza, because this time you're going down. What you should really take away from this is that these impossible odds and those deeply desperate emotional stakes, they were the exact, literal catalysts for the most iconic limit breaks in history. It wasn't about just hitting the gym and training harder at that exact moment. It was about the absolute refusal to let his friends down.
And just notice the breathtaking speed of this escalation. We start with foundational techniques, like pushing the Kaioken to ×3, which, was already incredibly risky, but very quickly, that shatters into the legendary Super Saiyan. Then, honestly, before the dust even settles, we're looking at Ascended Saiyan, and eventually, the mythical Super Saiyan 3. The standard baselines of power didn't just slowly creep up over time, they became entirely obsolete almost overnight. Which brings us to the first limit breaks and ascending past Super Saiyan. To really understand this rapid evolution, we need to analyze how those initial, reality-bending transformations completely redefined the fundamental baseline of Saiyan potential. Now, what's really interesting here is how the source material actually wrestles with naming this monumental leap. This wasn't just considered a basic power-up or a minor boost. It was described vividly as a Super Saiyan that has ascended past a Super Saiyan, or, as it was later efficiently coined, simply Super Saiyan 2. The sheer dramatic jump in baseline capability completely stunned both allies and enemies. It forced everyone to realize that the legendary ceiling they'd been looking at, that was actually just a new floor.
But pushing that limit to go even further beyond came with terrifying, undeniable costs. This wasn't a free power-up, not by a long shot. It violently drained away the very limited time Goku had left on Earth, and on a global scale, it caused sheer terror in the streets, making it feel like the entire world was literally shaking apart under the pressure of his energy. If not stopped, it threatened to destroy absolutely everything. Pushing the limit was a highly dangerous, reality-shaking phenomenon.
And that immense world-shaking strain leads directly to this beautifully dramatic admission. I'm sorry that took so much longer than the others, but I haven't had much occasion to practice this one. This is what I call a Super Saiyan 3. Just what a phenomenal moment. He had pushed the physical and spiritual boundaries of martial arts so far into the unknown that he literally created a form he barely had the occasion to practice. He was charting entirely new territory in real time.
Next, we examine the fusion warrior, Vegito.
So, we have to ask the logical question. What happens when a single fighter's individual limit is fundamentally reached? To answer that, we explore the ultimate workaround, magical fusion. The math of power changes completely when individual limits are maxed out. Take the last two living Saiyans, two warriors whose bitter, bloody rivalry had stretched over a decade, and they are forced to completely drop their swords. They must fuse permanently into a new, seemingly invincible Super Saiyan tandem warrior. It's a brilliant narrative shift from individual effort to ultimate reluctant compromise.
And just to show you how absurdly dominant this fused state was, the devious Majin Buu played what he thought was his absolute ultimate trump card, using his magic to turn Vegito into a coffee-flavored piece of candy. No way, right? But incredibly, the fused warrior retained all of his phenomenal power even as a sucker. He literally fought back and dominated his opponent as a tiny piece of candy. It proves that this level of power completely transcended physical form. Let's transition into reaching the divine realm. From transcending physical form, we logically move into heights that stop being a mortal concern and begin to deeply alarm the gods themselves. So the crucial point is, as we enter this divine era, the mechanics become highly complex. This is not just throwing on some blue hair dye, folks. Goku first has to get a taste of the Super Saiyan God energy, then he must master the Super Saiyan blue form just to contain it. Finally, he takes the massive gamble of intensifying that divine state with the classic Kaioken technique. It is a meticulously, dangerously stacked tower of power multipliers.
And that tower is incredibly unstable, as he openly admits. If I'd messed this up even a little, my energy would have run out of control. I would have been toast. I want you to really grasp the stakes here. The sheer, deadly risk of stacking divine energy with raw martial arts techniques requires absolutely flawless, pinpoint focus. A single waver in concentration wouldn't just mean losing a fight, it would mean completely destroying himself from the inside out.
But the result of successfully managing that deadly risk? The entire null realm is being shaken by some sort of influx of power. Here it comes. This builds incredible dramatic irony. Think about it. A mortal being is generating an influx of power so massive, so uncontrollably dense, that it is literally shaking an infinite empty void. The gods themselves are forced to sit up and take notice.
And this brilliantly illustrates the culmination of that divine journey, autonomous ultra instinct. We have to deconstruct this moment because it's absolutely vital. This wasn't just another multiplier to be stacked or another level of anger to be tapped into. It is a brilliant, majestic state of complete, true power. It is an entirely new martial arts state of being that left the divine onlookers utterly breathless. It rewrote the fundamental rules of combat.
Moving into our final era, primal roots, and final frontiers.
However, the pursuit of power isn't strictly linear. Venturing into the multiversal timeline against threats like Baby, we examine an entirely different evolutionary path. I want you to focus closely on this emotional anchor. Earth, she's so beautiful, I can't bear not being able to save them from Baby. Please give me the power I need to end this madness. Unlike the pursuit of divine martial arts perfection, this was deeply raw. It was his desperate, grounding love for Earth and his friends that forced a completely different kind of limit break. The motivation changed, and so did the result. That intense emotional trigger caused him to transform into the ultimate stage of Saiyan existence. Instead of reaching for the heavens to find divine power, he reached deep down into his primal roots. This process completely changed his appearance once again, bypassing the golden forms entirely to tap into a raw, ultimate stage of power fueled by his connection to his very lineage and his home planet.
Yet even that ultimate primal stage faced an insurmountable wall. Against the apocalyptic threat of Omega, the ultimate countermeasure was, once again, the transition from individual Saiyans back to the unified warrior. The realization hit that they must boldly declare, "We are one." The cycle of breaking individual limits, inevitably and wonderfully, leads right back to the unyielding power of unity and fusion.
Which brings us to the ultimate, final frontier of our explainer today. After traversing timelines, after mastering divine states that shake infinite realms, and after unlocking the deepest primal roots, I leave you with this provocative question. When Goku finally returns from the Dragon Realm to face the new, unprecedented threat of Zikor, what kind of absolute, incomprehensible power could finally make a warrior who has broken every known limit experience fear for the very first time? Think about that infinite ceiling of power. Keep analyzing, keep exploring the source material, and as always, keep learning.